And that war was really fought for the benefit of Israel, because the toppling of Saddam Hussein allowed Israel, to this day, a significant amount of their oil comes from northern Iraq, where the Kurds are. So when you figure things out and you find out the real narratives of why things happen, it always points back to the same region. That war gave us zero benefit, 1 million dead, thousands of U.S. soldiers killed, innocent people that died for what? Iraq to this day is still destabilized, and the only people that benefited was Israel, really.
Now, why do you think they miraculously, anyone who tries to branch away from the central banking just kind of gets deleted?
Because they own it, man. I mean, if you look at the Rothschilds family, right, and I think everybody here knows who they are, they have a banking dynasty. They control a majority of the world's gold. They mess with the gold markets all the time. Central banking, if you own the country's money, you own the country. It doesn't matter who the leader is. There's a famous quote saying, I don't need access to the leadership. I just need access to the finances. Then I'll control the country. And that's kind of what it is. A lot of people that oppose central banking ended up killed, surprisingly.
Conspiracy theory, Slimmy in the building.
Oh no, the conspiracy is what they tell you. The actual truth is the truth. The conspiracy is what the media tells. Because you know who runs the media.
Yep.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just said you're in the building.
Nah, I don't got no conspiracies. What them folks be doing is,
And that's why I was like such a vocal critic of us dropping a bomb in Iran, because I saw what was coming. And to be honest with you guys, Trump wanted to drop that bomb on Iran way sooner. It's because half his base said no new wars, what the hell, that he actually, pushed it back and thought twice about it. But if this was 2003, he would have went into that conflict way sooner. So thank God for alternative media. Thank God for, big influencers that, put pressure saying, yo, we didn't vote for this. We didn't have this level of, voice back in 2003 when Bush and Cheney, these guys, invaded Iraq. But now we do. And we can kind of see history repeating itself, because back then, Netanyahu was saying, oh, yeah, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. I'll never forget. He was at Congress in 2002, right before we invaded. And he said it verbatim, if you take out Saddam, it will have positive reverberations all across the region. That was a lie. Didn't do anything. It made it even worse. We created a power vacuum, created more terrorist organizations. But the reality is they just needed Saddam out of there, and it benefited them. So, what we saw going on right now with bombing Iran is part two. And this was all prophesized in something called the Clean Break Memo in 1996, where a bunch of neocons, that dual citizen individuals of a certain state, they proposed a entire strategy, a war game strategy of how they would take over several countries in the Middle East, and how taking these countries over or destabilizing them and or, regime change or, coups, whatever it may be, this would affect their security in the realm. It's called the Clean Break Memo, a pattern of securing the realm. And that is securing the state of Israel in a region where there's constant hostility. And interestingly enough, every single one of those countries on that list have been either destabilized, bribed, overthrown, or destroyed. And the only country that's left, Iran. So this has been in the making for a very long time.
Okay. Any other thoughts, everybody?
Sorry, and I hope I didn't hijack this conversation, guys. I know you guys were talking about.
This is good. We add that as a part of it. Talk about the political aspect of it. We had talked about it a little bit earlier, so you adding this additional context is very, very helpful, because we had kind of been disagreeing a little bit. So you adding this additional context, knowing that you are immersed in it a lot more than I am, is very helpful. So.
Yeah, man. I just, I try to do my best to give, because I watch all media. I watch Fox, I watch CNN, I watch Al Jazeera, I watch alternative media, I watch Russian media. And what I try to do is I try to get all parts and do my best to bring almost like a consolidated, version of what's going on. And obviously, Western media puts out a certain narrative, and then other medias put out certain narratives. So I try my best to kind of blend them, or at worst, give you guys the other perspective of what the other media is saying, so you can kind of compare and contrast.
When do you sleep?
During the day, man, I'm like a nocturnal dude. I normally sleep during the day, and I stream, like I start my stream like 5, and then like I just work into the night, and then I like sleep in the morning, and then I sleep all day. It's like a vampire.
All right, last question.
Sure, brother.
When do you have time for a relationship?
As of recently, man, it's been tough, bro. I'm not gonna lie, man. It's been tough as of recently, especially the past year. But it's all good, man. I think people getting to see this side and get another perspective on stuff. I think it's good because given my background and then also the topics that I cover, where it's like a lot of it is like censored or might not be covered that much. I try to give another insight.
I don't have as much time to allocate towards nurturing what it is that I got going on. So I always am curious to find out how other people operate. Most of the people that I know that are very successful, they don't focus on the relationship as much as they focus on what they feel like is necessary for them to do to win.
So, oh yeah, I'd be lying to you if I told you that my relationship was awesome and I was like, no, man, like my social life, I had 100% transparent, gone, cooked, finito. I'm streaming all day, and then when I'm not streaming, I'm researching, reading the news and stuff like that, and then make sure I have a topic. So yeah, my social life is absolutely suffered as a part of this. Like I'm not gonna lie. So I got a great. No, hell no, man. It's fucking cooked.
Mine's is too.
Yeah.
Mine's absolutely fucking cooked, and I'll be in the studio all day, most of the time. And I love being in the studio.
Yeah, you have to love it.
Relationship comes second to me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's very important for people to understand. For anyone that's watching that wants to be, a YouTuber, a podcaster, influencer, whatever, I think it's important that they understand that given the nature of how social media has made things, there's a little bit more easy access. Now it's more competitive, and since it's more competitive, a lot of the times as a YouTuber, you're competing with like professional TV networks, right? For viewership.
Absolutely,
so they kind of proved that. So. It used to be kind of like a job that people did on the side for fun or whatever. Now it's like, people really do this, and you're competing against full-on production squads. So it's very competitive. And the only way that you're really going to have an edge when you're competing against full-on broadcast TV channels is you got to put in significantly more work, because you might not necessarily have the production staff or the resources like, a CNN, a Fox News, a BET. A lot of these legacy channels have created YouTube channels instead to to collect back some of that revenue they lost, because cable TV is dead. It's cooked. It's all on demand now.
It is dead. You're 100% right. Any thoughts, anybody, before Myron? Or Myron, I mean, you can stay as long as you want.
Yeah. No, I'll dip out, man. I know you guys were having a combo before.
I got a quick question.
Oh,
go ahead, Karen.
No, I was just gonna say the only thing that I would say is I don't agree with the disloyalty thing regarding women. All of this Trump stuff, I have to say, I've more so just kind of been trying to sit back and really understand as much as I can based on as many facts as I can find. Because to be quite honest, depending on who you listen to, you get a whole different perspective that makes sense. Like I listened to Piers Morgan, and he spoke to Candace Owens, then he spoke to this other guy, I can't think of his name. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. Then he spoke with God, I can't think of his name either. It was 3 different people, and all of them gave 3 different perspectives with history attached to it that made total sense. Then I listened to the interview between Tucker Carlson and I'm so bad with names.
Ted Cruz, probably, yeah.
Yes. And even their discussion, both of them to me were like making valid points. And then I tried to do my own research and look at, I think it's like Al Jazeera. So yeah. I'm doing my best to listen to all these different perspectives, which is also causing me to have to go back to understand how did Israel even come into be? How did it even come to be? What was our beef with Iran all this time? Like all of these different components. So I appreciate you coming up here sharing what you've shared. And the reason I'm being so quiet is because I'm just digesting. Because I will say this. I don't know Trump, obviously. I don't know what his motivation is, but I do get a sense that he is attempting to operate in some capacity of like his own intention to take care of the country. Again, whether I agree or not is not it. It's not about if I agree with what he does. What I'm saying is, it seems like he is attempting to run the country how he thinks it should be ran. Now, I understand that there are things way behind the scenes that I don't know. There are agreements, arrangements that's been put into place a long time ago. There might be some that are in place with him in the current seat, but I'm still trying to be objective, if you will, and just as much as not eat the meat that they give on this side. I don't want to do the opposite just because people are saying things are true on that side, if that makes sense. So I'm taking it all in. I'm taking it all in and trying to, figure it out. I have my own thoughts on should we be over there?
Why
Should we
did
not?
you say you disagree with the loyalty part?
I said I disagree. I said I disagree with the loyalty part because
Is she a woman?
No. Well, kind of. But I disagree with the loyalty part because I think that a part of what Myron described, I think is true. Like, I do think that it is innate in us as women to be focused on survival for ourselves and for our children and to put ourselves in that space. But I think that it's also innate for us to want to be loyal in a safe space. Like, to me, it's innate for us to not want to have to be jumping. And I think just as much as women are maybe not being as loyal as they could or should be, I think that is directly correlated to men not being in that space of, I got you covered, you're safe, you're protected over here. So that's
why I made that, but I did make that distinction. I did say this is why when you don't do what you're supposed to do with provisioning or whatever, you're far more likely to have her leave because you're not able to provide the security. So like I did account for that like, if a guy doesn't rise up to his duties, there's a very high likelihood that the woman can leave because that security is being threatened. But what I'm saying is, when I say this also, I think it's very important to make the also distinction that with women leaving, right, a relationship is completely socially acceptable, right? We have high divorce rates. No one really bats an eye. We tell women, do what's right for you. But for men, we don't do that. We tell men, do the right thing, right? If a woman leaves her husband because he's not supposed to do what he's supposed to do, we'll champion that and say, yeah, he should have did better, blah, blah, he's an idiot, right? We have an entire infrastructure to kind of coddle women when they leave relationships. But if a guy abstains from his duties and he's not doing what he's supposed to do, or he decides to leave, he's going to be shamed for that, right? If he's a deadbeat daddy, he'll get roasted. He could be put in jail. So what I'm saying is that there's consequences for men lacking loyalty versus like for women, there aren't really the same level of consequences or the same social negative repercussions. We used to have them with religion and shame and these other things. But now, since the America has become a far more secularized society where, people can kind of do whatever they want. The same training wheels that were put in place to kind of keep women loyal and kind of keep them in relationships more long-term, these things are gone. And I would argue we've replaced it with more modernized strategies where it's like, be happy, do what's best for you. We have these mantras that feminists always put out there where a woman's happiness overrides the family being together, right? We have how many times does a woman say, I left because I wasn't happy, right? This is something that was, unheard of 30, 40 years ago. Women just made it work before because of duty. But now it's like, well, I don't have a duty to make it work anymore. I'd rather be happy. So I think that's kind of
or they'll also throw something in there and say, how can I be good for my kids if I'm not happy?
Yeah. Yeah. So I always say, and I've heard this quote a million times, right? Men will destroy their happiness for their family. Women will destroy their family for their happiness. And I would argue that
and still not be happy.
And still not be exactly because they thought the grass was greener on the other side. And the argument I make is social media, dating apps, all the internet in general has exacerbated this problem because since women are hypergamous and they're looking for the best option, right? That's just how they naturally swing. I want the biggest, strongest, best that I can get. The internet has made it where there's a plethora of options and there's all kinds of these men out there. So a girl, 50 years ago that grew up in her small town, dated a guy from high school. That's all she knew. That's all she hooked up with. And religion was a big thing. People would make fun of her if she was being a 304, etc. It used to be, this was the only guy that she had. This was the only frame of reference. This is what she knows and this is what she loves. But thanks to the internet, thanks to, our more hookup culture, promiscuous society, women have a bigger frame of reference of men. And then on top of that, higher status men have access to them because they can message them. This has absolutely destroyed the fabric of how relationships used to be, because if you leave a woman to her own devices, she's always going to get the best that she can get. And what women don't realize is the best that you can get might not necessarily be the best that you can keep. And that's the biggest distinction, where women make the L. They'll have a good guy. They realize, oh, I could do better. This guy's hitting me up. They go to that guy. They can't keep him. And then they realize, oh, this was an L. But it's not until they get older in their 30s that they realize that the Sheryl Sandberg, feminist rhetoric of have fun in your 20s, get settled down later on in life, that actually is a backwards way of them trying to find a relationship, because they have a bigger frame of reference than men, and it's going to be significantly harder to satisfy them. It was already hard to satisfy women before the internet. Now with social media and the access of higher status men, it's even worse. So what I call it is the perpetual grass is greener on the other side syndrome with modern women, where they always think they can do better, which technically they can. But how long can they do better? That is the key. And this is where modern women fuck up, because they think I can do better, but they don't realize they can't keep better. Just because you can do better doesn't mean you can keep better. And that's where they fail, because they get these guys, they have sex with these guys, but they can't retain these guys.
Another quick question for you from the chat. My homie Shay, she wanted to know, do you rock with Candace Owens?
Yeah, Candace is great. We agree on a lot of things. Israel, feminism, what's going on. I like Candace a lot. We've had her on the show before too. So I think she's great.
Yeah, I would say a lot of what you were mentioning was kind of the sentiment of what she was discussing with Piers Morgan.
When, today or another? Oh, you mean with
It
Israel?
was, I think,
because I know they talked today about Israel.
No, yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. The other guy was Glenn Beck, and then Bill O'Reilly. I couldn't think of his name. Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that interview.
So they gave all three different perspectives, and again, I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's kind of like, how do you know what's the real? How do you really know? Because again, everybody who shares their insight seems to come from a perspective of what I'm saying is true.
Yeah, I mean, you mean as far as like intersexual dynamics, like with the way men and women view each other, or?
Oh, no, not that. Because I'm now going back to the whole Iran, Israel, all of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
it's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This information that I told you guys about before, for example, the Osama and Saddam rivalry. You're not gonna find this on mainstream media. You kind of got to go looking for it, and that's by design. I think if more Americans understood the dark history of Israel, they would not support it, right? The state of Israel, to give you guys an example, was created through terrorism. A lot of people don't like to admit this. There's three organizations, you can look it up: Irgun, Hagedorn, Stern Gang. These three organizations ended up becoming, later on, the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. But these three organizations were Zionist paramilitary organizations that were responsible for killing thousands of Palestinians or exiling them out of their, indigenous land. And it's interesting because Israel will run to the United States and say, hey, put these guys on the terrorist organization list, like the IRGC, Hezbollah, Hamas, etc. But the reality is that their state in itself was created through terrorism by killing Palestinians and British people. You could look up the King David bombing. A guy named Menachem Begin, I was talking about him earlier. He's known as the father of terrorism. He later became the prime minister of Israel. So if you talk about the dark history of Israel and more Americans knew it, they would not support Israel the way that we do, but they suppress this information under the guise of anti-Semitism. But it's there. It's a rogue state that was created through terrorism, and that's not even my opinion. That is a fact. It's I said I was going to say biological. Excuse me. It is a geopolitical fact that it was absolutely created through terrorist paramilitary Zionist organizations.
Well, I will definitely say, and Anton knows this because again, this past election, it got me so deep into learning more and more and more. And I've often said that because I have kids now, I want to make sure that I'm, not operating from a place of ignorance. When I was in school, I didn't care about history. I probably wasn't learning all of this anyway, but I wasn't into history. So there's all these chunks that I don't know. So what you just said, Candace mentioned, she said that how she was talking about how Israel came to be, and she said, these Palestinians,
Yeah.
they gave their homes over to them and like let them stay, and they would come back and they're like, you can't live here anymore, you got to go. Like I didn't know any of this. So again, and this is to the chat as well, because oftentimes, Myron, when you come up here and share, I'm very quiet about this because I'm open to learning and hearing from people who make sense. And then I go off and I try to learn and build and see, okay, this is what he said. Is that true? So I already know I got to go research how Israel came to be. I got to go research all these different things that you're right, I never heard of, didn't know about. And so,
And honestly,
yeah.
that's not even like, that's by design. Like, I don't even blame Americans for not knowing this stuff because it was so suppressed for so long. If you had talked about this stuff prior to October 7th, 2023, there was a very good chance your YouTube channel will get banned, right? It's now a topic of discussion because of what's going on, right? You can't avoid seeing the kids getting bombed in Gaza. So now this has become a forefront of conversation. But if you talked about this before October 7th, they did everything in their power to suppress this. So I don't even blame, Americans when they say I had no idea about this. Yeah, that's by design. That's on purpose that they didn't make this information available, especially on big platforms.
Gotcha.
So, but no, man, thank you for having me on, guys. I appreciate you guys letting me yap a little bit.
Thank you, Myron, for coming through, bro. I appreciate you, bro.
Nah, man, it's always a pleasure to come in here, man. I appreciate you guys letting me come on and talk, and it's always fun. So
Always welcome. Always welcome.